Today we're working on a 2002 Toyota Corolla 1.8 liter. Doing a set of front brakes, and usually what I like to do when I get the wheels off is take my flat blade screwdriver, big guy, and if you're lucky you'll be able to put it right into this little groove or slot in the caliper here and get the tip of your screwdriver on the front side of the rotor and just pry forward on it, pulling the caliper towards you. And what that will do is actually compress the cylinder that pushes the pads on the rotor away, or actually back in, and compress the pins here. So it'll make it easier to actually get it off. And what I'm seeing right now is that the cylinder is actually compressing fine. Looks like this upper pin is compressing fine, but this lower pin is actually seized. So we're gonna have to take that all apart, pull the pins out, clean them up. So now that we've got the cylinder compressed inside the caliper a little bit, what we're gonna start undoing the caliper bolts. One up here, one down here. They're 14 mil. Let's start with this bottom one. Maybe I should have kept that one in for a second. So now that those are off and your caliper is loose because you've compressed this cylinder, now get the pads out. Okay. So one thing you're gonna want to do is make sure that you clean up these surfaces when you put it back together. You're gonna want to make sure that your this pin actually moves really nicely, and it moves in and out freely, you know, and it can spin around and that. If you pull it all the way out, there's actually grease on it, which is nice. Really bet this one, actually, you can't even get it to move. That's gonna take some work. We'll just take the entire bracket off and loosen it up on the bench. So one thing I forgot to mention is that you'd never want to let the caliper hang like this, just dangling and putting a pile of weight on the hose there. What I like to do is I try to just hook it up onto the strut somewhere, or maybe even get a coat hanger out and, you know, wire it up somehow. But that's fine like that. So next we're going to take the caliper bracket off. It's a 17 mil. There she goes. Now that it's broken loose, get the other one. Whoop. Whoop. That one broke loose, nice. sure to clean those up, that's for sure. Looks like it's holding on, just barely. Okay. So, now that she's all taken apart, we'll go over to the bench and we'll make these move. And this one, very seized. So yeah, we'll make these all clean. All right, so what I like to do is with this seized one, got it in the bench, or the bench vise, we'll grab it with a pair of vice grips. You'll notice that the some of these caliper pins are flat on each side, which makes it great for leverage. Oh, this one's moving side to side, so that's good. Means it's not completely seized. It's usually what I like to do if I can, and I mean, I'm barely doing this. Remember, it was seized in and out, and it still is. If it'll spin side to side, that means it is actually spinning inside. So hopefully there's some kind of a rust groove, or maybe just some old silicone that rusted a little bit. There, it's starting to work its way in and out. It's just great. Now that I've got it out, you can see there is a little bit of lube on it, but it's pretty rusty. So what we're gonna do is, what I usually do actually is take a little piece of sandpaper, don't have any in front of me right now, and actually roll it up into a little tube, and I'll put it around a little screwdriver, hold it with my thumb, and put it in there, and just kind of lightly clean the rust inside. Okay, and it's very important, because what's happening is, over time, rust kind of builds its way into places you never want it to, but it actually starts to grow and pinch down onto the pin and preventing it from moving. So, if you clean the rust out, you shouldn't pinch it again. Let's do that. So I was looking in my toolbox and I managed to find a little brush. Wire brush on, you know, a handle. And you pull that little rubber boot off, and with a little bit of persuasion, you can actually bottom it right out in there. So now that I've got it in there, just work it back and forth by spinning it, moving it in and out, that kind of thing. Well, after you've worked it in and out a few times, as well as spinning it, you want to clean the pin up a bit. Just gonna wipe it off with a rag because it's mostly rust and grease mixed together, which kind of makes a paste almost, and I mean, it really starts doing the opposite. It does need to be wire brushed, but we just want to make sure that we're actually making a difference, and wow, what a difference. Okay, so now that we've taken the wire brush to our little pin here, and we've cleaned the inside of this, blown it out very clean, dry it, you know, blow all the crud out with the compressed air and stuff, nice and dry. We'll take some high temperature synthetic silicone here, and we'll just put enough on it to, you know, to say it's wet. We'll just say that. Not too much, you know, you don't want to waste the stuff, and also some of it is going to push out, so what you want to do is just, without the boot and everything, make sure that it'll bottom out all the way, and that when you pull it out, it has actually got a fine coating all the way around. So now that we've got her all coated, and we know that our cleaning is going to work, we're going to give her one last little dab. So again, we don't want too much, because what that will do is actually, when we insert it, it'll make a pocket of air, and the further we push that in, it'll compress that pocket of air, and when we let go, it'll actually push the pin back out. We don't want that. We want to make sure that it's just nice, fine, even coating. So we'll Put our boot in. That's all cleaned up as well. See how it's already doing it? What I do is I like to give her a little spin, pull her out. I guess I had a little too much on in there. And just turn it while you got her in there. Push out any excess grease. Good to go. So that one went from seized to completely not seized. And we'll just do the same thing for this one. Okay. Now that we got our pins lubricated, moving again, we'll move on to these pad clips. Well, I usually just take a brush to them like this, clean the top side, so that way you don't bend the crap out of it as well. Sometimes when you take them out, people just go nuts on them. They end up bending the shit out of them. So, pull through, make sure we knocked all the gunk off. Perfect. Then we'll actually take them off. Now you want to make sure you grab a flat spot and just give them a little, you know, they'll pop right off. Same with this guy. And see how the bottom is all rusty? You're going to want to clean that too. Just lightly in our hand. Just take your time, make sure you get all of it. But don't be too rough with it because you don't want to bend these clips like crazy, right? Again, if you leave this crap on the bottom, it's going to start to pinch the pad whenever it starts to rust more. You want to make sure that doesn't happen. Okay. Now that we've got both sides all cleaned up, just want to clean the surface rust off the caliper so that it doesn't pinch our clip again. Got to do this one. Same thing with this side. Get right in there. Okay. Now that everything's all cleaned up, you go ahead and put your clips back on. Make sure they're all the way down and that the little bent portions that go inside here are resting in their home position. Same thing with up here. upside down. Okay. So, good to go, brand new. First thing you want to do is when you get your rotor out of the box, you want to give it a wipe down with brake clean. What they do is they package it with a light coating of oil. You don't want that oil getting on your brakes. So I've already gone ahead and done that. You want to prep this surface here. And what I mean by prep it is you want to make sure there's no, specks of rust that are built out or, stuff like that. This hub has been maintained quite well. It looks like every time the brakes have been off and serviced that somebody's gone in and cleaned it all, which is good. We want to make sure that rotor, when it's on the hub, it's completely true to the bearing. Otherwise, when the bearing starts turning, the bearing will spin true, but the rotor will wobble, and that'll just go through the brake pedal. You'll feel it, it'll wear the brakes out quick. You don't want that. So now that we've got our caliper bracket bolts cleaned and we've got some anti-seize on here, so that the next guy wants to take these apart and clean them up, can. You can't extend a light. Get them started. Just lightly button those in. Okay. Go back with the big bar and make sure that they're tight. Oops, wrong way. There we go, those are nice and tight. So, our caliper. And if you're wondering why I'm not too worried about this caliper, it's because when you push the piston back, it has to travel a long way because it hasn't been pushed back that far in a long time. Sometimes you get a little bit of leakage. It's okay. What you want to do is you want to make sure that that leakage doesn't exist after you put it all back together, because that cylinder will push back out, back to where it was, sort of, or close to it, and then everything will seal back up. Again, you want to make sure that this isn't leaking afterwards. So we'll put everything together, we'll pump the brakes a few times, come over and make sure it's not leaking. If it's not, we're good to go. If it is, well then we have to change the caliper. So again, we'll hang that bad boy up there. We'll get our pads out. So the lube, you want to just a little bit of lube on the ears here. Nothing crazy. You don't want to get on the rotors. You know, if you did the proper amount of cleaning on these clips, you'll have no problem getting these on. They'll just slide into place, just like that. Do the same on this. not bathing it in it. We're just putting enough on there to say it's there, right? Oops. There we go. Now that those pads are on, we'll put the caliper on. Hopefully we compress it enough to get it on there. Okay, looks like it needs a little bit of persuasion. Anytime I feel like I need a little bit more room, so I'm just using the old pad as a plate to push the piston back, the cylinder, whatever you want to call it. Tighten a little bit, do it again. So definitely move that time. Didn't need a whole lot of room either. So there we go. Caliper back on. Snug the top, that one up, snug the top one up. It's snug. A little extra on the bottom. And what you'll notice is that it actually moves nice and both pins are now moving freely. This is what you want to see right at the start. From the first moment that we grabbed our flat blade big screwdriver and pried this forward, we would have wanted to see that both pins were actually being compressed, right? And if both those pins were moving pretty good, I would have inspected them, made sure there's no rust in there and that they were moving freely on full stroke. Probably would have cleaned them again the same way we just did. But that's that. We're ready to put the wheel back on. Again, we want to make sure that after everything's put back together, we're going to pump the brakes and we're going to make sure that this caliper is not leaking. Sometimes when you pump the brakes after pushing the cylinder of the caliper back in, it pushes all the seals back into place and the leak stops. So we're going to monitor these calipers when we put it back together, make sure that nothing's leaking after the test drive. We'll be good to go then. Thanks for watching my video.